Bob had a night he'd never forget, though not for the reasons he expected. After a bit too much fun, he stumbled into bed, completely unaware of the strange journey he was about to embark on. The next morning, instead of waking up in his familiar bedroom, he found himself standing at the pearly gates. St. Peter greeted him with the shocking news that he had passed away in his sleep. Bob was in complete disbelief. Desperate to return to life, Bob begged for another chance. St. Peter offered him a deal. He could go back, but only as a chicken. With no other options, Bob agreed. In a flash, he was transformed into a hen on a nearby farm. As he tried to make sense of his new life, a rooster approached him and explained that he was about to experience something entirely new: laying eggs. Bob was confused but intrigued. To his surprise, he managed to lay a few eggs and even felt a strange sense of pride. Just as Bob was starting to get used to his new life as a hen, he was abruptly woken up by his wife, who scolded him for his drunken behavior and bedwetting. It turned out that Bob's entire adventure as a chicken had been nothing more than a vivid dream brought on by his late-night antics. A new guy moves into a cul-de-sac. One of the neighbors comes up to him and starts small talk. "So, what do you do for a living?" asks the old neighbor to the new guy. "Oh, I work at the university in the statistics and logistics department," he says. "It's hard to explain what I do there, but I can show you pretty easily." "All right, let's see it," he says. "Well, I see you got a dog house, so you probably have a dog. If you have a dog, statistically, you're more likely to have a daughter. And if you have a daughter, then you're probably married and got a family. So from your dog house, I can deduct that you're a straight married male. Is that right?" Kind of taken back, the old neighbor says, "Well, darn, yeah, you're right." Later on, this old neighbor starts chatting to one of the other old neighbors about the newcomer to the area. "What does that guy even do for work?" asked the neighbor. "Well, it's kind of interesting what he does, actually. He works at the statistics and logistics department of the university." "Yeah. What does he do there?" he asks. "Well, he couldn't really explain it, but he showed me what he does. For example, do you have a doghouse?" he asks the neighbor. "No," he replies. "Well, then you must be gay." A Greek and an Irishman found themselves in a Starbucks one afternoon, casually chatting about the proud achievements of their respective cultures over steaming lattes. The Greek leaned back with a smile and said, "You know, we built the Pantheon, not to mention the Temple of Apollo." The Irishman nodded, taking a sip of his coffee. "Impressive, no doubt, but it was us Irish who discovered the significance of the summer and winter solstices." "Not to be outdone," the Greek added. "And don't forget, it was the Greeks who laid the foundations for advanced mathematics." "Fair enough," the Irishman replied. "But the Irish were the ones who crafted the first timepieces." Sensing his moment to triumph, the Greek smiled knowingly. "Ah, but remember, it was the ancient Greeks who introduced the idea of as a pleasurable activity." The Irishman paused, set his cup down, and grinned. "That's true," he said, "but it was the Irish who got women involved." A young man went into confession crying and told the priest, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." "What have you done?" asked the priest. "A few weeks ago I went to the library. I remained there until closing time, and when I was about to go home, rain started pouring down. It was so intense I had to wait in the library. I had waited for a while with the librarian, a young, attractive single girl. Then one thing led to another, and I ended up sleeping with her." The man stopped talking, but kept weeping. "Well, don't cry. It's a sin, but it is not that bad. You should say 5 Hail Marys, and it will be forgiven," said the priest. "But it doesn't end there," the man kept sobbing. "A few days later, my elderly neighbor asked me to help her with her computer. Her husband was hospitalized, and she couldn't send an email to her son. I went there and fixed the problem, but when I was about to leave, rain started pouring down. It was really stormy and I had to wait. One thing led to another, and I ended up sleeping with the old lady, the man cried. Oh dear, well, that makes it harder indeed, but still, you should say 15 Hail Marys and you will be forgiven, said the priest. Oh, I'm afraid the worst part is still ahead, cried the man. Yesterday I went to the barber. I was his last client that day. As soon as he finished and was about to close the shop, rain started pouring down so intensely I had to wait with him. One thing led to another, and I ended up sleeping with him as well, the man cried. Oh dear, it is indeed worse than I thought, said the priest. So what should I do, Father? The man asked. Well, answered the priest, you should get the out of here before it starts raining. The year is 2020, and the United States has just elected the first woman from Alabama as president. A few days after the election, the president-elect calls her father and says, "So, Daddy, I assume you will be coming to my inauguration?" "I don't think so. It's a 16-hour drive. Your mother isn't as young as she used to be, and my arthritis is acting up again." "Don't worry about it, Daddy. I'll send Air Force One to pick you up and take you home. A limousine will pick you up at your door." "I don't know. Everybody will be so fancy. What would your mother wear?" "Oh, Daddy," replies the president-elect, "I'll make sure she has a wonderful gown custom-made by the best designer in Washington." "Honey," Dad complains, "you know I can't eat those rich foods you and your friends like to eat." The president-to-be responds, "Don't worry, Daddy. The entire affair is going to be handled by the best caterer in Washington. I'll ensure your meals are salt-free, Daddy. I really want you to come." So Dad reluctantly agrees, and on January 20th, 2021, the first woman from Alabama is being sworn in as President of the United States. In the front row sit the new president's dad and mom. Dad leans over to the Supreme Court justice sitting next to him and whispers, "You see that woman over there with her hand on the Bible, becoming President of the United States?" The justice whispers back, "Yes, I do." Daddy says proudly, "Her brother played football for the University of Alabama." The king was getting old and did not trust his sons to rule his kingdom after his passing. He decided that he must find a husband for his daughter. This man, who would one day take the throne, had to be the bravest and fiercest warrior in all the land. The king devised a test. His engineers immediately began work on a massive pit filled with horrors. On the day of reckoning, hundreds of brave men traveled from all the corners of the kingdom to prove their worth. They stood crowded at the edges of the pit waiting for the event to begin. The king stood with the princess on the far side of the pit and addressed the crowd. "Men, I seek the bravest and fiercest warrior to take my daughter's hand in marriage. To do so, simply cross this pit from that side to this and take her hand in yours. Additionally, I will." Before the king could finish, one of the warriors went straight into the pit and into a pool of black water. The crowd roared with excitement. Starving crocodiles, imported from the Nile, immediately swarmed him. After a furious churning of blood and black water, the warrior emerged. As he advanced, a swinging pendulum missed his face by a hair. The warrior ducked, dodged, and rolled past flying arrows, battering rams, spinning swords, and spouts of fire. The warrior was halfway through the pit when the lions pounced on him. The warrior was quick. He blinded them with mud and lured them into attacking each other. Some he killed with his bare hands. A few steps later, a giant swung his massive club with a thunderous shout. The crowd watched in amazement as the warrior slowly wore out the giant and broke him down by steadily pelting stones at his head. Finally, at long last, the giant fell. The warrior slowly climbed out the far side of the pit, beaten and bloodied. He took the fair princess's hand in his. "I am truly amazed," exclaimed the king. "You went into my pit with no hesitation and have valiantly survived every obstacle. You are truly the rightful heir to my throne. However, you likely did not hear the rest of my proposal," said the king. "Whoever survives the pit will not only take my daughter's hand in marriage, but may also make any request of the king that is in my power to grant. So, do you have a request, brave warrior?" "Yes," said the warrior. "Your Highness, I want you to bring me the motherfucker that pushed me in." Two builders go into the pub after a hard day's work. They're sat drinking for a while when a very smartly dressed man walks in and orders a drink. The two began to speculate about what the man did for a living. "I'll bet he's an accountant," said the first builder. "Looks more like a stockbroker to me," argued the second. They continued to debate the subject for a good while until eventually the first builder needed to use the toilet. On walking in, he saw the smartly dressed man standing at a urinal. "Excuse me, mate, but me and my friend have been arguing over what a smartly dressed fella like you does for a living," the builder said to the man. Smiling, the man replied, "I'm a logical scientist." "What?" asked the builder. "Let me explain," the man continued. "Do you have a goldfish at home?" A bit puzzled, but intrigued, the builder decided to play along. "Yes, I do as it happens." "Well, then it's logical to assume that you either keep it in a bowl or a pond." "Which is it?" "A pond," the builder replied. "Well, then it's logical to assume that you have a large garden." The builder nodded his agreement. So the man continued. "Which means it's logical to assume you have a large house." "I have a 6-bedroom house that I built myself," the builder said proudly. "Given that you have such a large house, it's logical to assume that you are married." The builder nodded again. "Yes, I'm married, and we have 3 children." "Then it's logical to assume that you have a healthy sex life." 5 nights a week, the builder boasted. The man smiled a little. "Therefore, it's logical to assume you don't masturbate often." "Never!" the builder exclaimed. "Well, there you have it," the man explained. "That's logical science at work. From finding out that you have a goldfish, I've discovered the size of your garden, all about your house, your family, and your sex life." The builder left, very impressed by the man's talents. On returning to the bar, the other builder asked, "I see that smart bloke was in there. Did you find out what he does?" "Yeah," replied the first. "He's a logical scientist." "A what?" the puzzled second builder asked. "Let me explain," the first builder continued. "Do you have a goldfish at home?" "No," replied his mate. "Well, you're a wanker then." A man is lost in the desert. After walking for 2 days, he finally sees some structure on the horizon. He realizes this might be his last hope and channels his last remaining energy to get there. 2 hours later, he finally gets to what seems to be some kind of well. Barely able to stand up, he walks around it to find a bucket or something, but there doesn't seem to be anything of the sort, and the well is too deep to see anything. Desperate for just a little refreshment, he grabs a big rock next to the well and throws it down the well, hoping it might at least splash a little water on his face. But after it hits the ground, he can hear that the well is completely dry. Out of strength and completely hopeless, he sinks down next to the well, waiting for certain death to come, when suddenly a goat comes flying towards him, whirling around him and finally flying into the well. Unable to believe what he just saw, he tells himself that the dehydration is making him hallucinate and he is going crazy. About 5 minutes go by when suddenly he sees a boy running towards him. The boy sees the dying man and without hesitation hands him some life-saving water. After the man is able to stand up again, the boy nervously asks him, "Did you see my goat?" "I can't find it, and I will get in big trouble if I lose it." The man seriously doubting his sanity and asking himself again if what he sees is real answers. "Yeah, I saw a goat, but you probably won't. Believe me when I tell you that it flew through the air and around me, and then it flew down that well." The boy looks at him and says, "What? That's impossible. I tied it to a big rock just next to the well." As a teenager, I had a summer job pumping gas. One week, an older guy drove up and said he wanted a fill-up. Then he got out of the car with an umbrella, opened it, and followed me around as I worked, holding the umbrella over my head to keep the sun off me. I awkwardly thanked him as he paid his tab and drove away. A week later, he came back for a fill-up. Again, he got out of the car with the umbrella and opened it, but this time he just stood there watching me work. I asked, "So, you're not going to use that to keep the sun off me this time?" And he retorted, "Watch it, young man. Fuel me once, shade on you. Fuel me twice, shade on me." An 80-year-old blind man walks into a pub and sits at the bar. He orders a pint and tells the landlord, "I've been blind for 50 years, lad. My hearing's perfectly attuned. I bet I can tell you what's happening in any room in this pub." "Oh, really?" says the landlord. "Go ahead, then." The old man cups a hand round his ear, tilts his head to the ceiling, and listens. "In your bathroom, upstairs, the one at the end of the corridor, a tap's been left on." Skeptical, the landlord sends his nephew upstairs to check. His nephew returns and confirms the findings. "Could have been lucky," says the landlord. "Go on, try again." The old man cups his ear, tilts his head to the floor, and listens. "In your cellar," he says, "I can hear scurrying. You have a rat infestation." "You're talking rubbish," says the landlord, and sends his nephew to check. He returns, and the old man is right again. Now intrigued, the landlord urges him to try again. He cups a hand round his ear and listens to somewhere behind the bar. "Ah, in the storeroom down that corridor," he says. "Someone's having it in there right now." The nephew goes and checks the storeroom, and what do you know? He finds two of the bar staff shagging away in there. "Bloody hell, old man, you truly are incredible," says the landlord. "What else can you hear?" The old geezer hushes the landlord, places his head on the bar and listens for a while. He lifts his head off the bar and says, "Yep, your beer pump is definitely out of action." The landlord checks the pump. "Ha! You're wrong, old man. It's working perfectly." "Well then, where's my f***ing pint?" Two co-workers, Fred and Jim, come in to work on Monday. Fred immediately says to Jim, "You won't believe my weekend. I went to the club Saturday and met up with this woman. We wound up getting a hotel room and went at it all night. She was absolutely incredible. I have to say, she was even better than my wife. You've got to meet this woman." The next Monday, Jim comes into work and says, "Fred, I went to the club Saturday and found the woman you were talking about. We got a hotel room and went at it all night. You were right, she was way better than your wife." A man enters a pub, walks up to have a seat at the bar, and then pulls out a 3-inch tall leprechaun from his front shirt pocket to set it on the bar top. The man looks at the bartender and says, "Yo, I'd like to get a beer for me and an Irish wine for my little pal here." The bartender returns with the drinks in short time. The man drinks his beer. The leprechaun drinks all the Irish wine from the bottle, only for it to suddenly stop in place for a moment, do a fancy little dancing jig, spin in place super fast for a few seconds, then run over to another man seated at the bar and go pfft all over him. The man who brought the leprechaun says to the bartender, "Yo, can I get another beer and Irish wine for me and my little pal?" Well, as you can imagine, the same thing happens again. The man drinks his beer while the leprechaun drinks the entire bottle of Irish wine, only for it to stop, do another little jig, spin in place very fast for a second or two, then run right back to the other man at the bar and go pfff all over him again. Now the second man is both quite soaking wet from being spat on and very, very pissed. He turns to the man who brought the leprechaun and says, "Look, I don't care that it's a mythological being. But if that little fucker does that one more time, I'm gonna castrate him with a butter knife. The first man shrugs and says, "Hate to break it to you, but leprechauns actually don't have male or female sexes. In fact, they don't have any genitals at all." Stunned, the second man murmurs, "How the f do they take a without any genitals?" The first man, having heard him, says, "Oh, that's simple. They go, pfft." These two Italian brothers own a garage. They hire this Korean guy as a mechanic. One morning, the brothers go to open the garage, and they find the Korean guy in the alley, and he's dead. They call the police. Cop: "What was his full name?" Tony: "I don't know. We called him Park." Cop: "Just Park?" Tony: "Yeah." Cop: "Where did he live?" Vincent: "I don't know." Cop: "Did he have any family or friends?" Both brothers shake their heads and say they don't know. Cop: "So let me get this straight. This guy works for you. You don't know his full name, where he lives, or anything about him. You must know something about him." The brothers think. Finally, Tony: "Oh, yeah, remember? He had two assholes." Vincent: "That's right. He had two assholes. I forgot about that." Cop: "You gotta be kidding me. You don't know jack about this guy, but you know he has two assholes. How would you know that?" Vincent: "We go to lunch with him at the diner across the street every day, and the waitresses there would always say, 'Here comes that Korean guy with the two assholes.'" Karen: "Doctor, I've not been feeling well lately." Doctor: "Well, I've looked at your lab reports and I'm afraid I have some bad news." Karen: "Don't give me this lab nonsense, you bureaucratic paper pusher. I don't believe Western medicine anyways. I've been following homeopathic medicine, faith-based approaches, and healing crystals all my life, and they never let me down. Now, will you do things my way, or do I need to talk to the hospital management?" Doctor: Sure, lady. We'll do things your way. Does an astrology-based approach work for you?" Karen: "That's better. Of course it would." Doctor: "What's your birth sign?" Karen: "Cancer." Doctor: "Well, what a fucking coincidence. P.S. It's my cake day. I am Cancer. July. I am a doctor. I hate quacks. It fits."